Hello fellow humans, today I want to talk about the old man, the T-34. Now this might be one of the most American tanks in the game. It's got a big head, it got massive penetration, but not much below that, and it moves very slowly. So what you have here is you have 400 alpha damage, 250 millimeters of penetration from its revenants of being a Tier 9 heavy tank a long time ago in World of Tanks PC, it never was in Blitz. The accuracy is surprisingly good for being such a massive stick of a gun. You've got 10 degrees of gun depression, which is very good combined with the pretty excellent turret armor. It does have a cupola, however, so that's something you have to watch out for. The aim time's pretty horrible if you compare it to more modern vehicles, and the biggest downer of this tank is its god-awful mobility. I think it should hit the gym and get some more power, because that's the biggest downside of this tank. Before we fully go into the armor, then the T-34 and the T-34 Independence are the exact same vehicle. Now, the hull armor in this thing is 170 millimeters, so not really that great. You can get pinned through the hull very easily. Don't really attempt to make use of that. Try to hide it as much as you can. The sides are 80 millimeters, so you can sort of bounce stuff off it. Still wouldn't really recommend actively side scraping with it. It is possible, but don't really bet on it. You don't have any weird side plates that could stop you from doing it, so it can work out, but don't really rely on it. The tracks are massive and thick. They're 20 millimeters, so if you are the enemy of the T-34, do not, whatever, I don't know why, but don't shoot heat at the side, don't shoot HE at the sides. The tracks will catch it. And then the turret is 300 millimeters, so for a Tier 8 and a Tier 9, pretty much impenetrable. You have some Tier 10 tank destroyers that can go through that, but for most Tier 8s and Tier 9s, that is impenetrable. The sides are very well angled, so impenetrable as well. What you do have, however, is this massive cupola on top of the turret, and also this plate here, which can get pinned with high penetration premium rounds. The T-34 can penetrate itself up here. So essentially, if you are using the turret, try to use the gun depression, because if you get to like 8 degrees, it gets sort of impossible to hit the cupola. But if you use less than that, you have to keep moving. And moving is kind of a problem, because that's the biggest downside of this vehicle. It's god-awful mobility. But the armor, for what it is fine. Let's get into a battle with the T-34, a vehicle that has quite a lot of history to it, and it is extremely old in World of Tanks Blitz. In World of Tanks PC, well, this used to be a Tier 9 heavy tank a long time ago. But now, it's a Tier 8 premium tank with excellent penetration, as we saw previously. So really, what you have here is you have a tank that hasn't been updated in a very long time, pretty much, but it still sort of works, because it can pen pretty much anything. It still does have the Tier 9 penetration, even though it hasn't been a Tier 9 for, well, forever in Blitz. So, let's see what we can do here. Obviously, we're not going to go to the bad side of the map on the New Lagoon. It's the New Lagoon and not the Goo Lagoon, but that will be an interesting map as well. Now, let's get over behind the standard B and use the HE rounds. Now, the biggest problem of this vehicle is its kind of very horribly lackluster mobility that doesn't really allow it to go much of anywhere. And it's also incredibly massive, which makes it pretty hard to hide it anywhere, especially if you're not really the fastest of tanks. So that's not really great there. And now, that Borsig is going to regret his life decisions as well, going to this side of the map, when his team is all over the place on the other side. Now they're capping, but that's not my immediate problem right now. My immediate problem right now is that this guy has too many hit points, and that Borsig is peeking like a player should not peek. But yeah, the thing is, this thing excels at playing hull down, slow shots, sort of like, in a way, a Kranwagen-like playstyle. It obviously doesn't have the auto-reload or any capacity, but the playstyle is somewhat similar. You're pretty slow. You have pretty damn good turret armor, but your DPM isn't really there, so you have to take yourself quite a lot of time to make this thing work over the long run. But once it does work, once you get into that groove of slow peaking and getting shots, is someone gonna go for the cap circle, or do I have to? Oh, God. Okay, I'm gonna do all the hard work, I guess, but here we are. He's hiding in that corner, down there. So I'm gonna have to go all the way in there, and luckily I've got the G-Saw with me, and there we go, problem solved. Now what I'm gonna do, because that SU is not gonna stand the tell the tale, I'm gonna simply already refocus on the Caliban, who is just freely peeking out in the open. Now we've completely ignored the Action X, and he's now mad about that, which he's now letting out on me. But ideally, we're gonna refocus on that guy, and that is 3,000 damage already done. Not too bad. But that's the thing. If you can let this thing slowly cook, then it is gonna give you a very nice meal. However, if you try to play it quickly, it doesn't really work out whatsoever. Here we go with game number 2, and now Molenbeek is a map where you can play this vehicle pretty well if you go to the right spot. Now, if you're a heavy tank player, then some will just go to the city, and that's about the worst thing you can do. A VK100, a VK90, even a Mouse. Those are the vehicles that work well in a city. Now, because of that's what they're built for. Now, tanks overall, however, don't work well in the city at all. Especially not a vehicle that's built to use pretty impressive turret armor and gun depression. Now, mind you, the cupola does stick out quite a bit, so if you're trying to use the turret on level ground, you can still get penned in that cupola. So that's something they have to be careful of. So if you don't use your gun depression, and you just think, oh, I have an unpenetrable turret, that's not going to happen. The cupola is going to betray you big time. And that SU-130 got betrayed by his camping spot. Holy. Alright. Now at this point, it's not really great to be honest, because I can't really use the gun depression while attacking this Chimera. Now, you could ask yourself, why are you attacking the Chimera if it's not an ideal situation? Well, because I want to. So, let's go for this guy. Even trade, I suppose. And also what I can do here is essentially, if I get rid of this guy, completely take control of the field, and there is nothing he can do about it. And he's not really too interested in fighting me right now, which does tell me that, first of all, he's alone, and second of all, he is not really too aggressive of a player, which I can make use of right here and just do these little peeks and quick peeks. You see that? And make him miss and make him do a bad decision, and now I have an advantage. Would you look at that? Now, obviously this tank isn't built for that. The Chimera isn't built for that either, to dance around a rock, because, I mean, look at its massive size. What are you doing? It is absolutely not made for that, and our dear friends in the city have departed this sphere of existence, rightfully so, because city players don't deserve any more. And now I can use this spot here as a spot of gun depression. Now, there's probably not going to be anyone that peeks here unless it's him. Sure. And now the Kyler is doing the right thing here. He's exiting the city, and that's what you want to do. The city isn't a really great place to fight in. It can be a good place to drive through, but in most cases, it's a really horrible place to fight in unless you're a VK90 or a Mouse that are specifically built for side scraping, essentially. And not even the Mouse is, really. So, you've got the VK90, that's it. All the other tanks ain't good in the city. And now, we know the Kyler's out, which means I'm now the biggest, baddest heavy in this place. I'm gonna get in there and get rid of this guy. And now, we've got a tiny little E25 hiding out somewhere, which is not gonna be trouble whatsoever, unless he can use his DPM. And now, all we've got is an M6 that is, weirdly enough, is younger than the T-34, but aged much, much worse. So, if you have the M6, my condolences. But the T-34, it has aged pretty decently, so if you can get it in that bundle for 5.5k gold, where it's often sold it, then I highly recommend picking it up, because while it is old and it can be pretty boring, and it does need a bit of mobility, if you're broke, if you need a good budget option, this is it. Or the Lurvin, one of those two. Those are your excellent heavy tank budget options to make great credits with at tier 8, tier 34, and the Lurvin. Do you have any of them? Are you thinking of getting one of them? Put it in the comments, and thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you on the next one. Goodbye.